Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weishuhn. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramid Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smoking techs, electric smokers, feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Well, thank you, gentlemen and folks. Welcome to our show this week. We've got some interesting guests lined up. I think you're going to have a good time listening to us. Like always, our first guest is Larry Weishuhn. Larry's an intricate part of this show. Larry, thank you for being here for 20 years. This is our 20-year anniversary of the show,
Woo!
Buddy. Can you believe it?
I can't either. That's truly special. I'll tell you what, I have enjoyed doing the radio with you for these 20 years. It's one of the things that I truly look forward to every week of you and I getting together. You know, we get together occasionally whenever we can out in the field and hunts and fishing and that kind of thing. But the radio show gives us an opportunity to visit, catch up every week, and it's been out of this world good. So thank you so very much for allowing me to be a part of this for so many years.
I've enjoyed it. We both have a big time. I can remember back, Larry, back in the early days of this when there was a producer, Dan Foster, a radio personality, Dan.
Yes, sir.
And he's a great friend. He moved up to New Mexico, but he was Bill Mack's newsman for many years.
Oh, yes.
Dan was. So you didn't know it at the time when we were first starting this stuff, but I would drive 50 miles to Allen, Texas, to a little old studio that looked kind of like you remember Hee Haw and that little radio studio where they had the egg cartons on the wall? Well, it was good equipment, but Dan, I knew nothing about. All I knew was I like to talk about hunting and fishing, and Dan was the man. He understood sound and he would flip the switches. But I would drive 100 miles round trip every week. And you didn't know where I was coming from, but that's where I was coming from, that little old studio in Allen, Texas. And Dan would, I'd get hung up sometimes. You know, I'd be talking to a guest, and I'd say, what color are the fish bite hitting best? And they might, say chartreuse, and that's it. And I'd get hung up. I had yet to learn to keep the conversation flowing, but it was a lot of fun. Larry, you've got some great folks that we share some of them, but that make it possible for you to be with us, and I'd like you to mention them.
Absolutely. Of course, first and foremost is Dallas Safari Club, DSC, Conservation Education, Hunter Advocacy, and Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable stealth vision that's made there or put together there in Crockett, Texas, the finest hunting optics available as far as I'm concerned. And then also we have got a great company with Taurus. Taurus makes the Raging Hunter handguns that I hunt. And of course, we both share the Choctaw Hunting Lodge as well, too, with doing a lot of things with there. And need to mention very quickly, I just got back very recently from a hunt that I did, where we sold a buffalo hunt that was bought by Mr. Steve Hornady, who he and his family own Hornady Ammo, and had an absolutely fabulous time up there with him. Shot a good buffalo, and people will be able to see that on A Sportsman's Life here. If not, haven't already seen it, they will very shortly.
Yeah.
Then to Mark and Carol Little also bought a bison hunt there at the DSC Oklahoma chapter, and they were up there as well at the same time. So had just an absolutely great time. And I have to mention too, we mentioned DSC, a couple other things I really want to visit about this morning, but need to mention that don't forget that the DSC convention is going to be held in Atlanta, Georgia, February 6th, 7th, and 8th. There's still time. We got about 2 weeks before that thing starts to plan to be there. And this is the hunting show of all hunting shows, if you will. And such a great organization. The DSC is just the finest conservation organization there is in the world when you get right down to it, having to do with hunting and supporting hunting. So, hope to see a lot of folks out there. I'll be there visiting with Steve Hornady rather. Excuse me, visiting with Steve Hornady, and I know Steve's going to be there as well too, and the Hornady crew and Stealth Vision Doc. And Joe and Terry are going to be in the Stealth Vision booth, and good gosh, there's no telling who else will show up out there. And I really look forward to spending time with people out there. Also, I need to mention, I just got back from an absolutely fabulous hunt that I did down in Durango, Mexico. My second time down there on the El Durangueno Ranch, and had an absolutely out of this world time. That too, we had one of the gentlemen there that bought the hunt that we sold on that property to be down there with me at the DSC Foundation Gala. And I think it'd be best just kind of hold off telling about that hunt till we can kind of devote pretty much an entire episode to it. So, but so many good things going on with hunting seasons in Texas. We still got hunting seasons with our managed land permit until the end of February. So I'm heading back over to our good friends, the Cotton's place, to try to take care of some last minute does. And there's still a few management bucks I'd like to remove. Not that I wasn't concerned about their breeding does as much as I am about them eating all the good forage that's out there and could be eaten by other bucks that have got better opportunities as far as antlers are concerned. So a lot of hunting going in the past, a lot of hunting going on, still a lot of hunting coming up in the future as well too.
That's right, Larry. I've got a couple of doe, a buck and a doe right now in the freezer, and I've got, 2 more probably that I'm going to, it's a good chance I'll probably take. Maybe one at the Cottons, but up the Friendswood Ranch up in Red River County.
Oh, yes, sir.
I've got plans to go up there. Let me think here. Probably a week or 10 days from now. And hunt that ranch. That place is it's a beautiful, beautiful part of the world up there. Big old hardwoods interspersed with a few pine plantations around. But I was raised somewhere about 12 miles, kind of northeast of that ranch. And of course, when I was a boy, it was just timberland. Growing up all through there. It's near Bogota, but it's folks might want to check it out. It's of course the buck hunts they've already got the quota of bucks, but they have hog hunts throughout the winter and spring. Friendswood Ranch, I believe .com. You can Google Friendswood in Red River County and find it. But looking really forward to that. I've got a little more muzzle loading hunt shooting that I need to do. My problem is it's really not a problem, but I've got all the venison that I need. I'm stocked. My freezer is full, so I've got on hunts coming up. We're going to be eating sausage and steaks and just out of my freezer. I'll need some help with that. But I've got 2 more deer that I really expect I'll probably be taking. So I'm going old school again. I've got my daughter's father-in-law, Phil Zimmerman. You know Phil.
Oh, no, Phil will. Yes,
he's
sir.
got built a big old a metal building there out where he lives, and it's a perfect place for making sausage. So I told him, I said, Phil, we haven't made sausage together in probably 6-7 years. And I said, that's a good warm place if we want to make some sausage in the winter. So I'm thinking we may, of course, keep the back straps on, assuming I do kill 2 more fat doe. I think I will, and then devote the rest of that meat to salami and summer sausage, and do it old school. Mix it up, grind it. I have an old meat grinder, Larry, that some of our listeners will know remember the name Bob Hood. Bob was the outdoor editor for the Fort Worth Star.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Fort Worth Star-Telegram for 43 years. A great friend and just a heck of an outdoorsman. But when Bob passed away, his wife his widow, gave me. Bob had already told me. He said, "You need this thing. It's a meat grinder. You've seen it. It weighs 80 pounds, Larry."
Yes, sir.
And it was built back in the 30s. I did some research on it. But that
man.
thing, Bob used to say, this thing will grind up a Volkswagen. That was his saying. Yeah, he wasn't far from the truth. But I'm going
right.
if nothing else, we can put all that venison to good use and make a bunch of summer sausage. You know,
Lordy.
yeah, and it'll be, I don't know, it'd just be a nostalgic thing for me to get to use that old grinder. I haven't used the grinder since we stopped making the sausage, but it's not that hard. I'm going to devote a little segment sometime to sausage making at home. If you just mix pork with venison, breakfast sausage, that's the simplest. And one of the things that I advise people to start with.
Oh, yes.
But it's not at all hard to get some casings. That's pork casings, and a sausage stuffer is not expensive. You can spend a lot of money on an automatic stuffer, but you can get a good stuffer for probably $50 or less, and make smoked links and things like that out of your ground. The ground venison with fat, it's about the same whether you're making smoked links or breakfast sausage or whatever. But the trick is learning how to get those get that sausage into those casings, which is pretty easy. But Butcher Packer Supply is a company that has all kind of seasonings, Larry, and you know about them, but you can order. You can go online to butcher-packer.com and cures. I mean, I've got cures from them for doing wild hog hams, for curing them and smoking them. So,
oh, yes.
Anyway, there's a lot of fun stuff still coming up. It's not over yet.
You're right. And as you were talking, I was remembering all the sausages that we made when I was a kid, and did it with a hand crank kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's all kinds of equipment available, as you mentioned. And where I grew up, there's a place called Heinsohn's Store, HEINSOHNS Store. And you can go to that website. And if you're looking for any kind of grinders or anything along those lines, anything having to do with sausage from that respect, or meat preparation, that's a great place to go. He's got a great website, and just about anything that you might want having to do with butchering, you can find right there.
You bet you. Well, Larry, we're about out of time. I'll let you go, let you get packed up for your next hunt, and we'll join everybody right here next week. How about that?
Yes, we will.
Folks, I want to introduce you to Vineyard Max. Now, this is an awesome deer attractant, a food attractant that's made with hammer-milled grape skin, dried hammer-milled grape skins. It has a mixture of rice bran and also corn chops. Very effective. Deer can smell the scent of grapes from a long way, and it brings them in. I've used it in West Texas out with Larry Weishuhn, and we were out there where deer are not even exposed to grapes, and they came right in. Also, Vineyard Max has a very good line of game and fish feeders. Check them out online, vineyardmax.net. Friends, Mr. Larry Weishuhn is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Luke, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34 millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is leveled because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well too, and a whole lot of other products. And folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
Folks, this segment is made possible by Smoking Tex electric smokers that I've been using a long, long time. I want to tell you about a one-stop shop for everything related to game feeders and fish feeders, Ultramatic feeders. I've been using components and feeders from Ultramatic feeders for 20-something years, I guess. They have the remote, which you can remotely activate your feeder with, the timer, which is the most simple timer that I've ever found on a game feeder. And then the eliminator, check these out. They are worked on actually on centrifugal force, and they seal off the corn supply so coons and squirrels can't get to the corn. Check them out. Ultramatic Feeders, you could go online to ultramaticfeeders.com. Well, folks, we have been all the way down to Sonora, down in Mexico, talking about some mule deer hunting down there with Mr. Wade, and that was, I think that was last week. Let's go up to Northwoods, up in Maine. I've only been there one time, but a lot of you I know the gentleman that we're going to visit with, Mr. Randy Flannery. Now, Randy is a outdoor writer, guide. He has an operation up there in the Northwoods of Maine. Honestly, a famous deer tracker. So I think I can learn a thing or two, and maybe you can too. Randy, thank you, buddy, for being with us.
Well, Luke, it's my pleasure, my friend, and it's always good to visit with you.
Yes, sir. You've guided in Texas too, haven't you?
I have, and my wife and I dearly love Texas.
Hey, I know you do. What areas? Different areas, or just one section down here did you guide?
No, I've guided in quite a lot of areas. Childress,
yeah,
O'Brien, Throckmorton, Guthrie, Benjamin, up in that country,
yeah.
Knox City, up that way, and also down in Coleman County, the Coleman Ranch, and places like that, and just dearly, down in between Abilene, Lampasas, San Angelo, down in that country, and just dearly love Texas.
Well, it's a great place. A lot of folks listening to us now down in that neck of the woods on radio, and then after all of our great radio stations run our show, well then we're a podcast, so even the people up in Northwoods on our podcast can listen to you. So tracking deer. Now the only kind of deer tracking that I know about is basically following a blood trail. Now, up in Colorado, we were out of that country on these archery elk hunts every year. By 1 year, there was a light dusting of sleet and snow. We're out of there by the third week in September. That I did that for about 6 or 7 years. A buddy and I outfitted up there. So my tracking has been mostly blood trailing. And the older I get, my eyes are not nearly as keen, as they used to be. And I bet you, tell us about how you track these deer. That's something that you are famous for, Randy, and I guess you've probably done it all your life.
I have, and I was fortunate enough to be brought up into a family of jump shooters.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the old timers called trackers and stalkers, jump shooters, because we pretty much track them until we jump them up and shoot them, or we stalk through the woods and jump them up and shoot them. So that's why it's fast shooting, iron sights. But we call, when you're tracking wounded animals, we call it exactly what you do. That's blood trailing. That ain't tracking. That ain't tracking to us.
Okay.
But up here the woods are so big. And they seem to go on forever. Just to give you a good example, I live in Washington County, Maine, which is bigger than the state of New Hampshire, and there's only 33,000 residents. It's just big country, and so what we do is because the range of the whitetail is so big up here. We track. You can sit in a long time waiting for a deer to come to you in this country.
I bet.
So we go after them. My grandfather always said there are two ways and two ways only to consistently kill big bucks in the wilderness. You either have got to go after them or you've got to draw them to you. So, but either way, you got to go to the deer.
I got you. Well, would you like walk logging roads or drive logging roads? And I get snow. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, Randy. Snow is probably going to be on the ground most of the time. Is that right?
Well, that's the best conditions. When people would ask my grandfather, how do you keep killing these big bucks? He would say when the ground is soft from sun, rain, or snow, track, because you can see a track.
Yes.
If not, then cross cut the wind and stalk. So that's pretty much how we do it. When we're looking for a track, we start before first light. We're riding the roads, the dirt logging roads that go on forever, and we're looking for a buck track to cross. A good tracker should be able to tell you the difference between a buck track and a doe track in the snow or in the gravel when they're driving 10 miles an hour in their truck. And it has nothing to do with dew claws. That's an old wives' tale.
Yeah, I've heard that, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, sir. So we're looking for a good buck track, and also a good tracker should be able to tell you within the first half mile on the track if that buck has been up chasing does all night and he wants to lay down and he's got a good chance of killing them, or he's going from one doe group to another and he's probably never going to catch up to him.
I got you.
A good tracker should also be able to tell you within the first half mile on the track, within 20 to 30 pounds of what that deer weighs and what kind of headgear it has, just by following the track. Following the track is like reading a book. If you know what you're looking for, the buck is literally telling you what it's going to do.
That's a skill, Randy, that I would love to be with you or someone, one of your guides, or to see a good tracker at work. And that doesn't necessarily mean following a good tracker that you'd have to kill a buck, because I know every track you get on, or I would assume, some of them you're not, like you say, it may be a buck up looking, and he may be traveling a couple of 3 miles, maybe going up. Yeah. Okay. Now, so the dew claws have nothing to do with it. And that I just am of the stage down here in Texas hunting all my life. Can you tell the difference in a buck and a doe track? I can't. No, I can tell a big track, but a big doe makes a big track too sometimes, right? I mean,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. We have some big does up here.
That's okay. I've got it that our next caller is calling in on us. Folks, this is our live radio. This happens occasionally, and we don't miss a stride, Randy. They'll hang up in a minute. We're going to get to them, but they're ready to record with us. So bottom line is, now how do you, the size is not necessarily what you're looking for, right?
Well, we are looking for a big track, but
yeah.
Keep in mind when you're looking for a track, telling the difference between a buck and a doe track is pretty simple. God made does narrower in the front and wider in the back for giving birth, and God made bucks wider in the front and narrower in the back to carry that big neck, that big chest, and big shoulders, and big rack of horns. So because a doe is narrower in the front, Luke, a doe track is one track behind the other, almost like in a straight line.
Okay.
A buck track is staggered because he's wider in the front. His chest is wider. So a buck track is staggered. So if you see a track, no matter how big the hoof is, if you see a track that's basically in a straight line, that's a doe.
Okay.
If you see a staggered track, that's a buck track.
Okay, now I'm learning something here. So by staggered, the back they're tracking different alignments. In other words, the wider ones on the buck, the wider ones in the front.
Yeah.
Because he's beefed up in the front.
And not only that, the tracks themselves are not in a straight line. They're spaced apart because their chest is wide and they have that stagger in the front.
Okay.
And the heavier the buck, the more he'll toe out with his front feet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's and the heavier the buck, there'll be more of a splay to his front hoof. Just different indicators between the buck and the doe track.
Well, say you get on a track, say there's snow on the ground. I would think that would make things easier, but let's just say
absolutely.
Yeah, it's got to. Okay, so you're on a track. It's a fresh track, and you've got to be, I guess, pretty quiet, pretty stealthily moving along, looking way ahead. Is that right? Or
well, knowing when to go fast and when to go slow is paramount with tracking.
Yep.
So what I'll do if I'm early on the track, like if it's early in the morning and I'm on the track and I age the track. And how you age the track, before I get on the track, I'll age it. I'll kneel down with the track right in front of me, and I'll ball my fists up,
mm-hmm.
and I'll stick them in the snow and pull them out real quick on both sides of the track.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I will compare the marks I just made with my fists, because the deer's hoof puts off heat just like my fists.
Yeah. And
if his track is icy on the bottom or crusty around the edges, then I know that track is older than 4 hours. If his track is very similar to the marks that I just made with my fist, I know that track is less than 3-4 hours old, and then I'll decide to get on it, and I'm going to try to catch up to him.
I'm with you. Well, I'll tell you what we need to do, Randy, and our friends listening. Let's take a quick break. And let's come back. I've got a ton of questions. Actually, I could probably fill 3 or 4 hours of the different shows, Randy, quizzing you about tracking deer. But let's take a break. We'll come right back, friends, and we're going to talk to Randy and learn another thing or two about tracking. How about that? Folks, let's talk a little outdoor cooking. Let me tell you about an electric smoker that I've been using for 15 years, I guess. Smoking Tex electric smokers. If you're tired of staying up all night keeping that wood fire burning when you're barbecuing, give Smoking Tex a try. They're made to last a lifetime. You can check them out at smokingtex.com. That's SMOKINTEX.com. For seasonings, anything to do with outdoor cooking, all kind of jerky seasonings, sausage seasonings, Butcher Packer Supply. That's butcherpackersupply.com. I think the website is butcher-packer.com.
Big Sam left Seattle in the year of 92 with George Pratt, his partner, and brother Billy too.
Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy Mr. Justin Rudd and his team of experts and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramid Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, friends, thanks for staying with us. Mr. Randy Flannery is still with us up in the north woods of Maine. Randy, if you missed the first segment, well, you got to listen to it on a podcast when it comes out soon. But Randy's a famous tracker of deer. He's got a lodge up there. We're going to connect you with his lodge and all that up in Maine. But Randy, I was quizzing you right and left there in the previous segment. So you've determined, let's say, in the snow that you've got a buck that you want to pursue, and the tracks look to you like, wait a minute, we can probably catch up with this buck. So, I'm all about bumping deer. We do it down here in Texas. We don't know they're there, but there's a buck ahead of you somewhere, and you've probably got a fairly good idea how far ahead, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It by the stride, and you can tell how fast he's going. So you got to be able to read that as well, because you don't want to walk right up on him and have him line out on you.
Right. Are you going to wait until the buck beds a lot of time, or you're going to eventually catch up with him, and he's probably walking as fast as you are, I'm guessing, as a rule. But do you catch most of them on their feet, or are they bedded, or how do you, when you get up with them, how do you usually find them? Standing
Well, all different ways. Usually they'll J-hook to a high spot, checking their back trail, and they'll be laying down or standing. Uh-huh. Or sometimes they'll just spin right around and be looking at you, checking their back trail behind you. But when you're following these tracks, Luke, there's telltale signs that the buck will show you of what he's doing. Like if he starts zigzagging, and like if he'll go up a small grade and then down, and then go up another one and then down, and then go over to a blow down, or go over to a pile of jack fir, evergreens, and then zigzagging through like that. He's telling you, by doing that, he's telling you that he's been up chasing does all night, wants to lay down, and he's looking for a spot where he can lay down semi-hidden and check his back trail. So that's the time that you want to slow down. Another time you want to slow down if he stops to rub a tree or make a scrape. He's slowed down, so you got to slow down. And then you start using your eyes more. You're looking for the white throat patch, the white around their eye, a flicker of an ear or a tail, a horizontal line in the woods, which would be his back. Don't look for the whole deer. Look for a piece of a deer, and always be ready to shoot fast and with fast follow-up shots.
I can see how that would be very, very important, because I'm betting most shots are, I'm going to say, inside 50 yards and maybe closer than that sometimes, right?
Sometimes, yes. I always tell people if you're going to come up to Maine and or any big woods in the North Country that has a lot of evergreens, you want to take your scope off your gun and leave it in the truck. And you want a fast shooting gun. My family's hunted with 16-inch barrel iron sighted Winchester lever guns for generations, because it's fast shooting and they're light and easy and fast to use and fast to handle.
Yes. What calibers I probably know the answer, but what calibers do you prefer up there? Well, if you're going to pick one.
I have a rack. So doesn't my son. We have racks of lever action Winchesters, and we use anywhere from I've shot more deer with a 30-30 than any other caliber.
Yes, sir.
But 375 Winchester, 38-55, 356, 444. My uncle Art shot 60-something big bucks in his life tracking and stalking with a 1876 Winchester and 45-60 with a 14-inch barrel. So the bottom line is we use short-barreled Winchester lever guns, and whatever caliber I decide to yank off the rack that day is the one I'm going to use.
You'd feel perfectly comfortable with the guy showing up with a 30-30. I mean, I've killed a bunch. Everybody's over the age of probably 60's killed a ton of deer with a 30-30, but I know they work. I guess they work on those big bucks too. Why wouldn't they?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, Luke, I asked my dear friend Phil Machero from Gun Digest asked me to write an article on the best guns for tracking, and it's in the 80th edition that's out right now, the 2026, and I did a lot of research, and believe it or not, the 30-30, actually the Model 94 Winchester in 30-30 has killed more deer than any deer ever, than any gun caliber combination ever. And number two would be the 1876 Winchester in 44-40. That's the number two most killing deer gun and cartridge. So they've been using lever guns for a long time.
You bet. That's interesting. I'm very anxious for that the next year's Gun Digest to come out, and I think it comes out in midsummer. But I'm anxious to read your article. I really am. It's
out right. It's out right now, Luke. So you can get it right now.
Okay. Well, I've got an article on big bore air guns, which I write a lot about them, and I'm actually hunting editor for a big bore air gun magazine. So I've got that article assigned. Actually, it's done and sent in to him. But I think that one is for, I don't know if it's I guess the next year's edition.
Yep.
But yours is already out then, right?
It's already out. As a matter of fact, he asked me to write mine a year ahead of time. So that's pretty much how they do it.
Well, I need to look over and read that. I really do. So a lever gun, and now here's another thing that I've learned talking to our friend Larry Weishuhn, is that he says up there, I think I'd make a great, at least a great client, or follow somebody around that knew what they were doing, because I'm all about a big deer. If I love venison, and you guys, you talk about the weight of the deer. Here in Texas, I mean, I hate to say it's all about what does he score with a lot of hunters. But up there, it's how much does he weigh, right? A lot.
Yes, sir. How that started, Luke, is back in the day, back in my grandfather and great-grandfather's day and my uncles and stuff. Back in the day, you could take your kill to the bear, deer, or moose. You could take it to the logging camps. And you could sell it to them. They would buy it from you to feed the loggers.
Yeah.
So, the whole weight thing, that's pretty much how it started, where people would sell their game. They'd weigh your bear, deer, or moose, and whatever it weighed, the more it weighed, the more you got paid.
I'll be. And then, but now those bucks up there are, the farther north you go, as a rule, the bigger the bucks are. But there's some big, heavy bucks up in the northern part of Maine. I know that, right? Yeah.
We're in the northernmost range of the whitetail buck. So 200+ pound field dress bucks are common, and every year, pretty much in Maine, there's a few shot that field dress over 300 pounds.
Monsters, yeah.
Yeah, so they're you wonder how you wonder how they make it through the woods, but it's amazing. Luke, I'll be honest with you, if I see bigger deer when I'm guiding than I do when I'm hunting, and the good Lord has a sense of humor, and but there are some unbelievably monstrous whitetails up here.
I bet, and I bet you've seen your share of them through the years being from there.
I certainly have.
Well, we've got a little bit of time, enough time to tell everybody where you are, your lodge, your bear hunts. Tell everybody how they can website or whatever, how they could connect with you, Randy.
Sure. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We are, my wife and I and our kids, we have Wilderness Escape Outfitters. And we are on Upper Hot Brook Lake in northern Washington County, right on the Washington and Aroostook County line in northern Maine. And we hunt, for bear, deer, moose, bobcat, snowshoe hare. We fish a dozen lakes. You can reach us at wildernessescape.com. And our phone number is 207-448-3238.
Well, Randy, thanks a lot. Another topic that I want to talk to you about, we used to have lots of rabbits when I was a kid here in Texas, cottontails I'm talking about. And there's still cottontails, but nothing like there used to be. I absolutely love to hunt rabbits. I love to eat them. I know how to cook them. I'm a smothered rabbit with rice and gravy, whatever. But I want to talk to you about hunting the snowshoes, rabbits up there. So I've never killed a snowshoe hare. I've been up in Alberta and up in Saskatchewan fishing, in the summer, and I've seen them. But I've never hunted them. Those are big rabbits, aren't they? I mean,
oh, they really are. Yes, sir.
Are they a rabbit or a hare? Do you know? I'm not.
They're
really...
a hare.
Okay,
they're a hare.
Like a jackrabbit is also.
Yeah, and they're bigger because, like everything up in the North Country, has to be big to survive the winters.
Yes, sir. Well, Randy, thank you a lot for being with us. I've had fun. I know our guests down here in Texas, and they're listening all over down this way. But thank you very much for sharing a little bit of your knowledge, and we're going to get you back. How about that?
Well, we appreciate you. I appreciate you so much, and always a pleasure, my friend.
For about the past decade, I've been hunting editor for Air Gun Hobbyist magazine. I think the only magazine devoted strictly to air gun shooting and hunting in the country. Well, in that length of time, I've learned quite a bit about big bore air guns and smaller calibers too. a spot to go to that if you're interested in air guns, you need to know about Pyramid Air. The website is PYRAMYD, pyramidair.com. They have anything and everything you need, from the guns themselves, the big bores or the smaller calibers, to the accessories. Just remember pyramidair.com, and there's a number when you get on the website if you need to call and talk to somebody. Give them a buzz, and they can fill you in on little details that you might need to know about shooting or hunting with big bore air guns.
The snowflakes fall as winter calls, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, this segment is brought to us by CVA muzzleloaders. In my opinion, the very best muzzleloaders in the world, the ones that I shoot. You can check them out online, cva.com. Kubi's Wild Game Processing and Kubi's Restaurant in Dallas, and Vineyard Max, maker of some awesome deer attractant and some very fine game feeders and fish feeders, located down in Nacogdoches, Texas. Check them out at vineyardmax.net. Folks, I want to introduce you to some good friends of mine at Dash for Cash Pawn Shop in Seagoville, Texas, located at 133 Hall Street. The phone number is 972-287-3121. Go by there and talk with Gary or Randy, the owner. They're great people. They've got some great prices. Again, that's the Dash for Cash Pawn Shop, Seagoville, Texas, 972-287-3121. Well, folks, you know, an interesting gun-related hobby is finding old military rifles and sporterizing them. If you don't sporterize them, you know, they're antique collector items. But when sporterized, drilled and tapped, if you will, for a scope, and the stock's cut down, maybe the barrel cut off and recrowned, all that, possibly, they become a viable hunting rifle. Now, Mr. Dustin Warnke, who is the producer of our show, is also very interested and very knowledgeable about these old military rifles. So that's what we want to talk about. Dustin, thank you, buddy, for being with us.
Thanks for having me on again, Luke. It is always a pleasure to be on the show and to produce the show.
You bet. Well, I appreciate you very much. I'd like you to mention a few of the rifles that are available, and then I'm going to get you to tell how to find ammo for them. And I know some might be challenging to get ammo for. And then also, some particular old military rifles that lend themselves well to being sporterized. So I always think about a 303 British. I don't know why that always comes to mind, but it does. Would that be a good one to track down and sporterize?
I'm looking at my 303 British.
You've got one. Okay.
Yeah, I've got one right here. And I just ordered ammo. There's a website out there you can find if you just type this into Google called SG Ammo. And they're out of Stillwater, Oklahoma. They have a lot of just these older kind of, obscure calibers.
Yeah.
And they carry typically, sometimes foreign. You will find better loading in foreign, like PPU and S&B, cellular bullet, and that kind of stuff. Hunting rounds, hunting a box of cartridges that you can go hunt with out of these guns.
Yeah.
Now, something I want to talk about, I was a purist collector back 20 years ago when I started with Mosin Nagants. That's one of the ones we're going to talk about. So Mosin Nagant, Russian bolt action, World War II, they were made from the 1891 all the way through the 50s. And, sporterized versions, I always like the full, Manicler style military stock on those. And then I will get a NDT or no drill, no tap. No gunsmith needed. There's one particular mount that I've used for them, and they make several mounts for scout mounting, where you don't have to drill the tap a receiver or mount a scope in front of the receiver, like from the rear sight mount. And those can be like Bad Ace Tactical. Bad Ace Tactical is one of the places you can find those, but they're going to run around $70 to $150, $150 or whatever, but you don't have to pay a gunsmith to drill and tap on your own. And they also preserve the collectible history of that rifle. You can see the crest and that kind of stuff, and it's not being covered up. So that's one thing with a lot of military collectors that are purists. You could always get an old military rifle like a Springfield in 30-06 or a Mosin or a Mauser or an Enfield. Those would be the three top
Okay.
or the four top ones:
Okay.
Mosin, Mauser, Enfield, or Springfield. And whatever you can find, if somebody's already chopped it up or cropped the stock and had some kind of just a modification to it and drilled and tapped from, let's say it was done back in the 50s and 60s when it was cheaper to do it, like we talked about on the last show we did. That's a good deal to buy. Sometimes they even have scopes mounted on and everything like that. You don't have to drill and tap because that in itself is a little expensive. So then you could get you a rear sight mounted scout scope or some kind of a rear sight, that kind of pulls it back like a Bad Ace tactical mount to be able to make that particular rifle huntable. Put an optic on. And a lot of us are getting aging eyes, right? And so we like to have a nice optic, whether it be a red dot sight or maybe something as big as a high power scope on a high power rifle like these.
Dustin, let me stop you right there. I've got a question now, and I did not know about this. You mentioned not a drilled and tap scope or mount, I should say. Now, I'm trying to picture how this thing attaches. Does it go under the barrel and attach to the barrel?
Very good question.
How does that work?
So I have one here. This is a JMEC scope mount, and this guy kind of like Dr. Pearson for the Winchester 94. There's Pearson's tack rail, and this is an example of just how a no drill and tap works. So think about a Winchester 1894, old iconic rifle, also a Rossi 92, so he makes mounts for both of those that basically only mount of its kind that I'm aware of. And this is the way no drill tap mounts work, just as an example. So if you go to a Mod 94 scope rail online, you can kind of figure out what this looks like. And basically on like a Winchester, you've got a little side screw that you could replace. And this mount basically mounts forward of the receiver. So think about a Winchester 94 as a top eject, like as the traditional ones.
Yep.
And you get a pre-64 or post-64, whatever the case may be with Winchester's manufacturing. So the thing is, old grandpa's deer rifle, you could put a scout scope on there, like a Vortex Crossfire scout scope or, anything like that would mount forward of that top eject receiver. He's got the only game in town, the only mousetrap like this. And it doesn't require any drilling and tapping because it's a top eject, right? So the same thing works with Enfield's Mosin Nagants. The JMEC mount that I have here has a band that goes underneath the stock. You have to inlet the stock a little bit for it, but it doesn't make you have to drill the receiver. It goes right over the receiver, right over the top of the receiver after it bends on, right in front of it by where the barrel meets the receiver, right? So that's a kind of a clamp or a clamp down mount. He's got the only mousetrap in town that does that. Bad Ace Tactical sells several different mounts, and they mount. So think about this: rear sight comes all the way back over the receiver. So that would be for you need a bent bolt for this. For a Mosin sniper, which I've got a couple of them. An Enfield already has a bent bolt. A Mauser, M48, like a Yugoslavian Mauser, has a pre-bent bolt already, and you can get a mount like this. You could also, and this is just me being a little bit fun here, I'm doing this with my Yugo 48 Mauser. You could get a scout mount and then put a cantilever scope on top of that scout mount and bring it back over the receiver that way. It's kind of like a little, I always call it the poor man's no drill tap mount.
Yeah.
So
I got you.
Hopefully that helps you understand.
Yeah, it gives, I bet our listeners too have a working idea now how that works. So say Gun Trader, I think you said, is how to find these things. I mean, used to you could order them. I've ordered them back in the late 60s when I was a kid, in the early 70s, through the mail, had them shipped to my door, but those days have long gone. Texas Gun Trader, is that right? Is that a good place to look?
Yeah, Texas Gun Trader, you can just find that online. And then for the ammo for these kind of more obscure that you're not going to find at your big box stores like Academy or Bass Pro or whatever, and find them at a good price too, is SG Ammo. That's Sierra G golf ammo. So SG Ammo, and you can just Google this and find them online.
Yeah.
And they've got a lot of other ammo. You could buy ammo by the case over there. And so I would recommend looking private party. Used to be you could walk into certain gun stores, and find these old rifles. You still can. There are some that I found, at a local gun shop down here in my part of Central Texas. And, you can always, there's some, you never know what you're going to find. Pawn shops are another good idea.
Yeah.
Like we always talk about finding an old bow or a crossbow at a pawn shop, getting a good deal on it. My first military surplus rifles came out of a pawn shop. And I remember my first two SKSs, one was private party for $150. That gun's worth well over $1,000 now.
Yeah.
And then Chinese SKS, that was a Russian SKS and a Chinese SKS, which I actually killed an axis deer with some wolf ammo. 154 grain, that was a heck of a pill, and I killed an axis deer with it, and I found that I bought that for $150 back in the day.
You bet.
They've gone up, but you can still find deals.
I got you. Well, folks, we have a little bit of time left in this segment here. I have Dustin looking for one, and he was telling me for $400 you can find a serviceable one of these that might be already customized or maybe not. But I think it would be cool for me. I like to hunt with air guns, crossbows. I do hunt with all that. I shoot all that stuff throughout the year just for fun and to stay proficient with them. But I would like to get maybe a British 303, because I used to have one of those years ago. But mine did not.
Right?
Mine did not have a scope on it, And I like to scope that thing. And I think it would be great fodder for some magazine articles, plus it would be just a whole bunch of fun. Dustin, we have time for you to connect everybody with you. Anything, I'll call Dustin my guru, but he helps so much with the radio shows. How do they contact you for whatever? You do so many different things, Dustin,
Oh, sure. So I have, I can be found on social media at Dustin's Projects, dustinsprojects.com. That's how to find me, kind of my personal social media creator handle. And then I have a kind of a marketing agency side of my business, and that is at businesswithdustin.com or at businesswithdustin. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate all of you.
Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you had a good time, too. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game, lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring.